Hello my friends, you're listening to Ebird Online and I'm back with another review. And guys, I think everyone will understand when I say I hoped I'd never see this disparate group of wannabes again. But surprise, surprise, here they are. And it seems as if every single member of this family wants to get on 90 Day Fiancé. Yes, that's right, today we're going to be talking about Libby and Andrei. Guys, thank you to everyone who's recently subscribed to my channel. My numbers are going up and up. Thank you so much for all of the support. I really appreciate it. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing. Consider coming on over and joining the fun. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Ebird Online. So without further ado, I give you Libby and Andrei. So as we know, Libby and Andrei got married last year in Moldova. And there was a massive argument at the wedding where Charlie, Libby's brother, was, how can we say, quite rude about Andrei. Now I accept that Andrei does have a face which says aggravated felony. But you cut a man some slack on his wedding day, you really do. But Charlie always takes things far too far. And in fact I think he gave some sort of wedding warning speech and he said something along the lines of, "Don't you dare come back to America and try and live off my dad. Don't you dare ask my dad for shit." Guys, let's see what happens, shall we? And so we first catch up with Libby and Andrei explains to us that he's just got his real estate licence and he wants to open his own business. Good for you, Andrei. We're all right behind you. He tells Libby he thinks he'll be good at house sales. What do you think's going to make you good? Well, I'm good at convincing people of things. Oh, Andrei, that doesn't sound promising. And guys, just to let you know, I wasn't going to bother covering these guys this season because, well, as you know, I find them quite contrived and quite boring. However, now they've got this new flipping houses and real estate, I'm fairly interested. So for those of you who don't already know, for the last 20 years I've been buying and renovating and flipping houses and renting a few out along the way. So without putting too fine a point tonight, I think it will be literally hilarious watching Andrei and see if he's got the skills that he thinks he has and see if he's any good at flipping houses. I have a feeling there might be quite a little bit of comedic content there. And I know you guys are not going to expect this, but something tells me he probably will be. I don't know why, but I'm secretly looking forward to him being quite successful and grinding that success into the faces of the embezzling miscreants that Charlie calls his children. Guys, I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And as these guys are sitting on the sofa discussing how they met, Libby said, "I saw photos of him online and as soon as I met him I thought, wow, you're gorgeous." And Andrei said to Libby, "What about my personality?" Oh, Andrei, come on. Be honest now. Does anyone outside of your family have a positive take on your character? Anyone? Anyone? Please speak now. Andrei, I think we've got a pretty solid "are you out of your effing mind?" And the next time we see this couple, they're at Libby's sister Becky's house. And they're all drinking champagne on the veranda and they're celebrating Andrei's epic victory at getting his real estate licence. And talk turns, unsurprisingly, to business. And Libby explains that the whole of the family, so all of Chuck's kids, all work with him in the property management business. And they ask Andrei if he wants to join them. And Andrei says no, he doesn't want to. He wants a loan of £100,000 to start flipping houses. What? £100,000? Andrei's living in cloud cuckoo land. I started flipping houses on about £5,000, although I hate to admit it was over 20 years ago. But immediately as soon as this £100,000 is mentioned, Becky and her husband Thomas are not happy with this plan. As well they wouldn't be. I guess they figure if there's £100,000 going for someone to set up their own business, basically in competition with their business, it should go to one of his actual kids. And Libby tells us she instinctively knows this £100,000's going to be a problem. You don't say, Libby. I don't think there's anyone in the whole of the US or in fact worldwide that would like a son-in-law rolling in and asking for money to be in the same business that all the kids are in and actually getting it. And in fact I think just that Andrei has the temerity to ask is irritating to most of those kids. And Becky sums up the prospective mood incisively when she says, "I don't think any of the family are gonna like it." You don't say, Becky. So next time we see them, Andrei's meeting up with Chuck and he's going to this meeting to ask him for that $100,000. And Andrei's very, very confident and he thinks that he's definitely going to get it. So guys, I've been thinking about this $100,000. I think Andrei probably knows he needs maybe $40,000, $50,000. And so he's figuring if I ask for $100,000, I might get half of it or 3/4 of it. I can only assume that that must be the plan. And so Andrei meets with Chuck at a cafe and he asks him in his own inimitable, bolshy way for a loan of just $100,000. And of course immediately Chuck says, no wait, no, not gonna happen. What I can offer you is that you come and work for me in my business and you really prove yourself, and perhaps after that we can have a conversation about it. And as far as I'm concerned, this is an astonishing outcome. This is what you call a win. Chuck hasn't completely closed him down. And he's saying, if you prove yourself, if you excel, if you're really good, a loan is potentially on the table. Andrei, consider this. You're a Moldovan with no work history whatsoever in the US and you don't own any property. Nobody else is going to loan you any money at all, save maybe about 5 or 10 grand from the bank. So to get a potential maybe from your father-in-law is what I'd call an epic win. All you got to do now is do what you said you could do anyway and prove yourself. No, Andrei, I don't mean prove that you're a dick. We know that. I don't mean prove that you're rude. We know that too. Prove you are what you said you are, a great salesman and really hard working. Guys, the Ebird's got her popcorn ready. This should be fun. And Chuck decides to talk to producers and he says, I can't quite believe he has the audacity to ask me for this money. And Chuck said, this isn't a game. I didn't get to where I'm at overnight. We know, Chuck, it took a whole lot of scamming to get where you are, and a couple of bankruptcies here and there. But I get his point, nobody should really get a leg up without putting the work in first, but I guess fortune favours the brave. Has anyone else asked Chuck for $100 grand loan so they can go out on their own? Probably not. Here what we have, ladies and gentlemen, is the only person with the absolute bollocks to straight up ask, before he's listed a property, before he's sold a property, before he's done any negotiation, to ask for the money. And I gotta tell you, I'm quite bullshit myself, I can't hate the hustle. So I guess really all Andrei's got to do now is pick up as much as he possibly can from Chuck and from the rest of the family and just basically outperform them and outsell them. Something tells me that all of Chuck's kids are kind of a little bit work shy and they haven't gone out and got their own careers or forged their own way, because I think they're on an easy ride with Chuck. I think each and every one is living off him. So it's hereby my prediction that it won't be a difficult task to outperform them all. So guys, when I got into the property business, I knew absolutely nothing about renovating houses, but I was quite lucky because my brother's quite handy, so he helped me a bit, and my dad had done lots with property before, so he helped me. And whilst I don't think it's ultimately that difficult to make money, it is very easy to lose money. So you can flip 3 houses and make a profit on all of them, but if the 4th house is a dud, you can wipe out all your profit with just one mistake. I think I was very lucky that Daddy Ebird always taught me one thing. He taught me to make my money on the front end. And so what he means by that is cut a good deal in the first instance when you're purchasing the house. So never pay the full price for a house, and then whatever goes wrong, you will at least break even. If you do not get the property for at least 10 or 15% under the value, that means you've got zero margin for error. If anything goes wrong, you stand to lose. And it's very interesting to me because when Andrei said, I'm really good at convincing people things and I'm really good at selling, he hasn't thought about what I think is the most important part about flipping houses, and that's buying. You have to buy well and you have to negotiate well in the first instance. I'd go so far as to say it's quite easy to sell a house. It's buying a house at a good price before anyone else pokes their nose in, which is your biggest obstacle. And just as they were leaving, Chuck said to Andrei, well, I'm going to think about you working with me, but first I want to take it to the rest of the family in a big meeting. Oh, good Lord. Andrei, forget it right now. You have absolutely zero support from this family, and that includes Libby. And so next time we see this couple, Libby is off to said family meeting. Libby tells him they're all going to be discussing Andrei coming to work with them, but he's not allowed to attend. And he says, I don't think it's fair I'm not allowed to attend. Andrei, it's to your extreme advantage that you're not allowed to attend. Your attendance could only possibly F things up. And then Andrei said, I don't want to work with anybody in that family, I just want to work with Chuck. And that's only so I can get my 100 grand. Andrei, how the hell do you think Chuck's gonna separate all the business processes so that you don't come into contact with any other member of the family? He really is a dolt at times. And Andrei reminds Libby, as if she didn't know, that she's supposed to be on his team. Actually, she doesn't know. He really doesn't mind putting her in the middle of an argument now, does he? And she said, I'm always in the middle, and I always bat for you. And he said, well, don't forget that. As if she could. You tell her every hour on the hour. So at the family meeting, Libby and all the sisters, and Chuck and Charlie, stand around over a buffet of sushi. Guys, it's that sushi again. So at the meeting, Chuck tells everyone about the request for £100,000 from Andrei, and everyone's disgusted. And then Chuck said, I want to bring him into the business, what do you guys think? And sisters Jen and Becky say that they don't mind Andrei working with them, and he has to work his way up, but but he shouldn't be given a business. He's not asking for a business, he's asking for 100 grand. There's a very big difference. It's highly likely the 100 grand will just disappear, and there'll be no business, just the hemorrhaging of cash. But bozo-in-chief Charlie said no way. He's a criminal who needs to kiss their ass. He said, I've got one thing to say about Andrei. F him. How intelligent. And so at this point, Libby storms performatively out. She said, I'm going. I'm not listening to this. How do I know it was performative? Well, as she was going, because she wasn't getting enough attention, she said, bye guys, see ya, just to ensure maximum attention. As per usual, Libby's pulling the I'm the youngest card and my dad always does what I want. And her siblings rush out to console her. And she's standing outside of the house, of course, crying. And she says, my husband's making an effort and everybody's making fun of him. Why can't they just give him a chance? Well, they've tried. They can't give him a chance because they've met him and they know his personality, Libby. But Charlie's on a roll. He says, I won't let him take advantage of my family and my dad. And they argue back and forth. And Charlie ends up hugging Elizabeth and said, okay, well, I'm prepared to work with him, but only for you. And Elizabeth has pulled it off yet again. As per usual, with the use of tears and coercion and not logical arguments. But you can tell Charlie's going to make it as hard as possible as he can for Andrei when he goes to work there. But I have to say, well done again, Libby. She knew she was going to get her own way, and she did. So when she arrives back at home, she tells Andrei it's no way to the 100 grand, but you're going to have to work in the business, and that means working with everybody. And Andrei said, no way, I'm not going to work with Charlie. And Andrei's being quite stubborn and quite ridiculous, considering that this working with Charlie is worth potentially 100k to him. And Libby turns on the waterworks once again, and she tells her husband, I've been in a battle for you for so many years. I'm drained and I'm over it. Why can't we just find common ground? And Andrei says, Charlie's a nobody over there in that company. I don't mind working for Chuck, but I don't want to work for Charlie. But he tells Libby, I will work and I'll prove myself as fast as I can so I can get out of there and I can get my hands on that 100k. And Libby once again storms off and says, I'm over it. I don't have to be your advocate anymore. Well, Libby, you kind of do, because you're married to him and you have a child. And that's where we end things for this week. So what does the Ebird think to all of this? Well, pretty much the same as everybody thinks. Andrei is extremely arrogant. He thinks he's a legend, a king. He thinks all women want him and all men want to be him. He thinks nobody but Chuck is worthy to breathe the same air as him, and I don't know where he gets all of this from, because I haven't seen much from him thus far that convinces me he can necessarily do the job. I do believe that when he starts working, he will work very hard. I see that in him. But it doesn't seem like he's that interested in trying to learn as much as he can. I think he thinks it's easier than it is. But I do feel sorry for him in one respect. Having to listen to Libby drone on about how she's in the middle is a cruel and unusual punishment for anybody. And also, poor Andrei's going to have to deal with Charlie, who has both a face and a personality that scream, punch me now. However, he's got to understand that Charlie is Chuck's son, so he really needs to eat a big slice of humble pie and just try and get on with him. But Andrei has his work cut out. His level of brinksmanship has yet to be determined. But we know one thing, it's Charlie's express wish to jettison Andrei right back to Moldova. So guys, who do you think will win out? Do you think that Charlie will manage to rub Andrei up the wrong way and get him out of that business pronto? Or do you think that Andrei will prevail? And do you think he'll be a success in the business and manage to get some money out of Chuck to set up on his own? Please let me know in comments down below, and I'll be back very soon with another video. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you haven't done so yet, press the red button, click right away, and also don't forget to smash the like button if you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for listening. You've been listening to Ebird Online, and I bid you good day.